Welcome to the hardest working committee on government affairs. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Assemblyman Carter. Present. Assemblyman DeLong. Present. Assemblyman De Silva. Here. Assemblywoman Duran. Here. Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Here. Assemblyman Gurr. Here. Assemblyman Hibbets. Here. Assemblyman Koenig. Here. Assemblyman MacArthur. Here. Assemblyman Wynn. Here. Assemblywoman Taylor. Present. Assemblywoman Thomas. Here. Chair Torres.
Welcome to the audience in Carson City and those joining us by video conference in Las Vegas and listening over the internet. Just a couple housekeeping items. As a reminder, please remember to silence your electronic devices. If you wish to testify, please sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card to the committee secretary. For those joining us online, please be sure to mute your microphone when you're not speaking to minimize any background noise. When testifying, please turn on the microphone and clearly state your name, spell your name, and give the affiliation, if any, for the record. Then turn the microphone off each time you are done speaking. If you have any handouts, please provide at least 20 hard copies for members of the public. Electronic copies should have been submitted to the committee manager by noon yesterday for members of the committee. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we may not agree with another person's position. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. Public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Each person will be limited to 2 minutes. In addition, the public may submit written testimony to the committee up to 24 hours after the hearing. At this time, before we get on to our agenda for the day, I will remind committee members that I will let committee members know that we do have a BDR to introduce today. We will introduce, it's a committee BDR, BDR 23896, which makes various changes relating to government administration. This measure is sponsored by the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs, and it makes various changes relating to government administration. It seems that I have a motion to introduce the BDR from Assemblyman Wynn and a second from Assemblywoman Taylor. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, this motion does pass. And just to the audience, we are going to be following the agenda in order today. So we will begin with a presentation from the Office of the Labor Commissioner, the Department of Business and Industry. Yeah. And that will be presented in Las Vegas from Labor Commissioner Brett Harris. Thank you. When you're ready, you may begin.
Good morning, Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner for the record. That's BRETTHARRIS. Thank you so much to the committee for having me this morning. This is my very first time doing something like this, so I really appreciate being here in front of you. I became the Labor Commissioner in September of last year. I'm from Southern Nevada originally. I grew up in Boulder City. I went to Las Vegas Academy and the Boyd School of Law. So that's a little bit about my background. I come over to the Office of the Labor Commissioner from private practice, and I also served on the Employee Management Relations Board from 2019 until I became the Labor Commissioner. So it's been really wonderful being over here. Just generally about this office, everybody that works there has been a beacon of knowledge and passion about what they do. Our office is small, but we have significant responsibilities. So we are a staff of 22 when fully staffed. We are currently at 19, so that's not too bad. We are without currently a deputy labor commissioner, and we're down 2 assistants, but we have myself, the labor commissioner, a chief investigator, chief assistant, an auditor who is here next to me, Alexa Cano, 9 investigators across the state, 7 administrative staff when we are fully staffed, and the state apprenticeship director is in our office. So we are small, but we are mighty. Our major responsibilities are to regulate private sector employment anything that is not otherwise sent somewhere else is our responsibility. So,
Excuse me, could we have the presentation adjusted so we can kind of see that full screen?
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that better?
Yes, thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. So our major responsibilities are to regulate private sector employment. The most prominent type of regulation we do is in the wage and hour space. So our office did over 4,000 wage and hour claims last fiscal year. We also regulate general employment, employment of minors, public works projects, so that's prevailing wage, certified payroll reports, and the Apprenticeship Utilization Act. This is just kind of a roadmap of where we're going. I'm going to kind of break down some of these things more specifically of what we do. We also are the State Apprenticeship Agency, so the State Apprenticeship Council is under our jurisdiction, and we license and regulate private employment agencies and professional employer organizations. So if you would like to do some light reading, these are all the statutes and regulations that touch on the responsibilities of the Office of the Labor Commissioner. As you can see, we have a wide range of duties and statutes that we enforce and make sure that Nevadans are in compliance with. As I spoke about before, our primary type of case is a wage and hour case. So we're talking about enforcing Nevada's minimum wage. As I'm sure most of you know, we currently operate under a two-tier system in Nevada. So that means that the lower tier is for employers that provide qualified health plans, and the higher tier is for employers that do not provide qualified health plans. We are currently $9.50 an hour for the lower tier and $10.50 for the higher tier. That will go up 75 cents of July 1st this year, and then the Nevada voters passed ballot question 2 this past November, which will eliminate the two-tier system entirely as of 2024 and make Nevada's minimum wage $12 an hour. So the primary basis of our wage and hour claims is that an employee must be paid for every hour that they are worked in Nevada. So by far, again, that's our most common type of claim. We, as I said, did over 4,000 of those types of claims in 2022. They usually occur when somebody leaves their job. So they're either terminated or they resign, and those have different standards for when the wages are due. What happens is, well, first, wages are considered hourly rate, a salary, a commission, piecework, shift work. What they are not is bonuses, profits, or fringe benefits. So when we are talking about that two-tier system, even if you do offer a qualified health plan and you can pay the lower tier of minimum wage, does not reduce the actual wage due to the employee, which is a little bit different than prevailing wage, which is something we'll talk about later on in the presentation. But the process for these claims is very straightforward. We try and make it as easy as possible to access our office. Claims are primarily filed online. We encourage everyone to file online if they can, but we also accept claims in person at both our Las Vegas and Carson City offices. So the process of a claim is that we get a complaint. It is set up in our case management system and assigned to an investigator who sends out a notice of claim. After that, they engage in kind of an informal discovery period. There's an investigation where the investigator will collect documentation from the parties, pay stubs, text messages, whatever might substantiate or defend against the claim. And then after they assess all of that, they will go forward into a determination if a violation is found, and they will close the claim if no violation is found. They also try and negotiate settlements between the parties to resolve the claims. And if a party is found in violation and there is a determination issued and they disagree with it, we also have a hearing process, so they can ask for a hearing in front of myself, and then we'll do kind of a mini trial, an informal hearing process, and we'll then turn whatever the result of that hearing is into the final order. Just like in any case, you can appeal that. You can file a petition for judicial review and go to the district court, and you can appeal their decision and go all the way up to the Supreme Court if you want to. But generally, the vast majority of those claims get taken care of long before even the determination. They get settled quite often. You have that same process for our general employment complaints. So those are a little bit different because generally we're assessing administrative penalties for things like failing to give meal times or rest breaks, not paying the correct overtime, failure to keep records, or misclassifying employees. So the same complaint process that I just described applies, but it's a little bit different as to what kind of damages or resolutions we can come up with. The other big area that we regulate is public works projects. So that is primarily going to be 3 different types of claims. A public works project is a public project, public construction done with public money. It's generally sponsored by or otherwise oversaw by a public body who will award the project to contractors and kind of monitor the work being done on that project to make sure that it's generally in compliance with Nevada Revised Statute Chapter 338. So when it comes to us, is what happens is we have 3 different types of claims. The first one type being prevailing wage. So prevailing wage is something that our office also has the responsibility to survey for. Surveying for the public for the prevailing wage will begin pretty soon here. We are conducted mostly in July of odd years, but it does open up in April. What that does is we ask all contractors to submit all hours for all of their classifications of types of workers on all of the commercial construction projects they have done for the past 2 years. So that is a big project. We analyze a lot of data. I think out of the last one, there was something like 17,600,000 hours plus that were reviewed, classified, and then divided by jurisdiction to set prevailing wage for each type of classification of worker on a public works project. So that's something that we will be doing here soon, and we publish those rates by October 1st. So a claim comes to us under prevailing wage when a classification of worker is not paid the prevailing wage. Generally, for each types of these claims that I'm about to discuss, the process is the same. So an awarding body or the public body or a third party or a worker on the project will submit a complaint indicating they were not paid prevailing wage, and then the awarding body will generally perform an investigation, determine if that's true, and then we would get their determination similar to what our investigators do and reduce that to a final order. So we do that on not only prevailing wage, which is, again, surveyed for and then set a little bit different than minimum wage because it can be the base rate of pay plus bona fide fringe benefits offered to the worker. That means that if the contractors are the worker is being offered at least a monthly benefit that is for their sole benefit that is paid to an independent third party on their behalf, that can reduce the base wage a little bit. So that's what I meant in terms of the difference between the prevailing wage and traditional minimum wage. So all workers on a public works project who are employed on the site of the project must be paid prevailing wage. The other types of regulation that occur on a public works project are certified payroll reporting. So certified payroll reporting must be done by the 15th after the end of the month. If not, then penalties can accrue and a case can be opened with our office. We also do on public works projects apprenticeship utilization enforcement. So right now, the statutes require for on public works projects that the contractors engage apprentices to work if there are 3 or more of their classification working on the project. The requirement is dependent on whether you're performing vertical or horizontal construction, but it's again another place for enforcement where when there are an insufficient amount of apprentice hours on a project, the awarding body will submit a determination to us. We will review their documentation, determine whether a violation has occurred, and reduce that determination to a final order if necessary. So for apprentices, you can get a waiver from our office. That's another compliance aspect that we regulate. We process waivers. So if someone requests an apprentice on a project and they're unable to get one because they don't exist in that jurisdiction or the union doesn't answer them or whatever it might be, they can apply or tell the awarding body to apply to our office a good cause waiver. As long as they get that waiver, if they then do not complete their apprenticeship hours, they wouldn't be in any danger of any sort of enforcement action. So these types of cases, as I mentioned before, are generally initiated outside of our office, just like the wage and hour complaints. So we usually get them either from third parties that perform their own investigations, like unions, or the awarding body notices they're not getting their certified payrolls on time, or they're reviewing their certified payroll reporting and they're realizing prevailing wage wasn't paid or apprentices weren't utilized. They will then issue a notice to not only us, but also the alleged violator that an investigation is occurring. They have 30 days to perform that investigation and submit a determination to our office, which we then review and allow the alleged violator to submit to any opposition to. They can request a hearing. And that process is similar to how it works for wage and hour claims. So they come in front of me. We have a pre-hearing. We try to resolve what we can. If not, it goes to a full hearing with evidence and argument and briefing, all of that. And then we issue a final order. If that final order is disagreed with, they can always appeal it and file a petition for judicial review. As I mentioned before, the State Apprenticeship Council is currently under the Office of the Labor Commissioner, so that was moved from GOIN in July of 2021. The full governing statutes for the State Apprenticeship Council are found in Nevada Revised Statute Chapter 610, and we recently in November got a new state apprenticeship director. Her name is Tony Giddens. So these numbers that you see that the registered apprenticeship programs have for 6,198 apprentices, 747 employers, 62 registered programs. Those are all fiscal year 2022 numbers. Thanks to Tony, those numbers are all higher now. So she's doing a great job helping the trades build those programs out and get people enrolled in them. And I apologize, the slide says there are 5 voting members. That was me doing bad math because it's 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1 voting member, and I have a lawyer brain, so I can't add. But it's 7 voting members and 4 non-voting members that are on the council. And they have their own regulatory functions, registering those apprenticeship programs, making sure they're compliant, and then also doing regulatory responsibilities like hearings if they're not compliant, if they don't fulfill the requirements of getting apprentices enrolled in the program. They also will do compliance for apprentices that are discharged from programs. They have big responsibilities. Another one of our licensing responsibilities are professional employer organizations and private employment agencies. We do all the licensing, regulation, and compliance for that. So those types of businesses will submit documentation applications to our office. We will make sure that they meet the statutory requirements for licensing for those types of businesses in Nevada, and we will issue those licenses, and if not, we will also do the regulatory and compliance processes that need to be done should they fail to meet those requirements. Just a brief look at our office in terms of data and numbers. For wage claims and complaints in fiscal year 2022, we had 4,534 claims. So that was a lot. Our investigators right now are carrying a significant caseload. I would say they're anywhere between 80 to 150 cases each. So it's extremely large caseloads. But they've managed in fiscal year 2022 to collect over $1.2 million in wages for Nevadans. So that's great. They also additionally collected an additional $200,000 in penalties for those wage claims. Some of that goes to the claimant, some of that goes to our general fund, just depending on the type of penalty it is. We processed through 222 prevailing wage claims, so those Chapter 338 apprenticeship matters, payroll matters, prevailing wage claims, and collected almost $300,000 in prevailing wage deficiencies. We also issue public works numbers, public works project numbers in our office. So when a new public works project is starting, they have to request a number from us. We issued over 1,000 of those in fiscal year 2022. I think we're on track to do much more than that in this next year. We licensed 158 private employment agencies, 186 professional employer organizations, and again, the apprenticeship numbers, which are higher now, but we have over 6,000 apprentices, over 747 employers participating in apprenticeship programs, and 62 registered programs. So, little agency that does a lot. We also provide bulletins, guides, required postings on our website in both English and Spanish for Nevadans to use or reference at their need. And we have some additional kind of community guidance or help you can request from our office, including advisory opinions, you can petition for declaratory orders. We do training seminars for employers and employees, and we do working groups with our contractors to make sure that they are comfortable with what our statutes say. We also help with handbooks and guidelines. And just generally, if you ever need to reach out, we are always available. Our website was just redone by my wonderful assistant, Eileen Waltz. So it's nice and clean and neat. The website is labor.nv.gov. If you have general questions, we have a website or just a general email address that people can use. We also have specific email addresses that are a little bit more pointed and targeted for the different functions that we do in the office. So we have one for Public Works, we have one for apprenticeship, we have one for the Apprenticeship Council. So we are trying to make ourselves as available in as many different avenues as possible. That is all for kind of our general agency overview. Thank you so much for listening today. I know that was a lot, and I'm just so happy to be here.
Thank you, Commissioner Harris, for your presentation. We do appreciate it. Members, any questions? Okay, so I have Assemblyman Nguyen, Assemblywoman Thomas, Assemblywoman Taylor, and Assemblyman De Silva. I'll go ahead and begin with Assemblyman Nguyen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Congratulations, Commissioner Harris, on your appointment. I think you're starting off well. Thank you for the amazing presentations on those data that you have. I'm wondering, in terms of the private sector, Nevada now, especially for Clark County, is one of the most diverse county in our country, actually, not just state, but in the U.S. And I'm wondering, in terms of language access, you mentioned Spanish earlier as one of the services that you have in terms of websites and in terms of folks who collateral and things like that. How about other languages? Do you encounter cases or claims from communities, especially, the AAPI community that I represent has a lot of language barriers, and when they encounter state agencies, I just want to make sure that, especially for the labor piece, that they have resources to be able to contact and work with your office as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner, for the record. So, generally, we have a surprising number of languages spoken just within our office because we have a very diverse staff, so that works out in our favor. We do obviously run into claimants who have languages that we don't speak. What normally happens is they'll usually bring some sort of representative or have somebody that they'll translate through them, but we don't have direct access to any sort of translation services.
If you can provide us with that list of available language, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Assemblywoman Thomas.
Good morning, Chair, and thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. My question actually has to do with NRS 608 wage claims, and I know that you, during your presentation, had said that the claims that are mailed to employer respondent, allowing 15 days to respond, your office to respond. I would like to know, what is the process for the entire claim? Is it a year? Is it 2 years? Is it less than 6 months? What is the average?
Thank you, Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner, for the record. So we try and close claims out within 90 days. We have a pretty good average of doing that. We do that about 80 to 90% of the time. A wage claim will be done, completed and paid or closed out within 90 days. There are some that take a little bit longer.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for the presentation, and congratulations on your still new position, and you're still smiling, so that's a good sign. That's a good sign. My question is, you spoke about a lot of the duties. Thank you, because I've learned a lot during this presentation. I know there are wage claims, and there are also some fees you mentioned, and you get quite a bit back in fees, so that's good for your general fund. Or for the general fund, sorry, might not be yours. But I'm wondering if you ever make a decision, and if there's they don't agree, so is there an appeals process from either the employee side or even the employer side?
Yes, thank you, Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner, for the record. Yes, so we do get appeals generally in the form of a petition for judicial review. So if we reduce something to a final order, the next step is to take it to the district court. I would say, we don't get many, but we probably have a handful that are pretty active at all times. In various staging, some of them go all the way up to the Nevada Supreme Court. So yes, there is due process past our office.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Assemblyman De Silva.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you again, Commissioner. And again, congratulations. I've heard some great things about you, and I'm looking forward to working with you here in the future. So my question is this, post-2020, we've seen a change in the workforce, the working environment, a lot of folks working from home. And I was wondering, one, has this been something that the Labor Commission has looked into, the sort of complaints that are now more maybe pertinent, being in a digital sort of workplace? And then number two, have you seen an uptick in those sort of complaints coming specifically from virtual settings in both the public and the private sort of approaches that the Labor Commission is interested in? Thank you.
Thank you, Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner, for the record. I think we would have to look at the data that we have to see if there's any sort of significant difference. I am not aware of any, right off the top of my head, like a big distinguish an argument or defense or type of claim based on remote work from not remote work. But claims in general are up overall pretty significantly. I don't know if that's a reflection of the kind of varying workplaces or a post-2020 world, but claims are definitely up. They're just up across the board.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Assemblyman Carter.
Good morning. My question's in regard to the apprenticeship utilization. Can we get a number, how many waivers are being processed and how many are being approved? And also, is there a mechanism to where when a contractor creates a self-imposed hardship and or an exploitive use of apprentices, harming the apprentices, is there a process to police that? Such as working apprentices 2 hours a day, sending them home, putting them on remote locations, working them 1 day a week out towards Caliente or whatever. Is there a process for policing these bad behaviors?
Thank you, Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner, for the record. So first, to answer the first question, yes, we do keep our data on how many waivers are processed. For Northern Nevada in fiscal year 2022, 177 waivers were received, processed, and granted, and 126 waivers were received, processed, and granted for Southern Nevada. Regarding the second part of your question, we don't have any type of statutory or regulatory enforcement for that type of concern, but that is a concern I have heard from the people from the registered apprenticeship programs themselves, wanting the apprentices to have meaningful experiences on job sites.
Thank you. Vice Chair Duran.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. My question is there a statute of limitation that a person has to file for back wages at any time?
Thank you, Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner. For the record, yes, it's a 2-year statute of limitations.
So now, if there's no mechanism for, like I've had people ask for just general questions of myself, if they worked overtime and they had to prove it, is there some ways they can do that, or can they keep their copy of their own hours of work, or how would that be considered if they have that documentation?
Thank you, Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner, for the record. So we work with both the claimant and the respondent to provide records and documentation. It is the employer's responsibility, legal responsibility, to maintain records. So they cannot escape a claim just by having a lack of records. So the employer should have that available.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions? Thank you. I believe those are all the questions today. Thank you so much for your presentation, and congratulations on this new position. We look forward to continuing to work with you. And welcome back to Nevada.
Thank you, and thank you for making this as painless as possible.
We can change that.
That's ominous. Okay, thank you.
All right, members, we are going to go ahead and go with the next bill. So the next bill that we have is AB 172. I will now open the hearing on AB 172, which revises provisions governing collective bargaining for local government employees. And Assemblyman Anderson, when you are ready.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Chair Torres, for scheduling this. And also, I'd like to continue the painless presentation if that's possible. Please. Okay. So So thank you, Chair Torres, Vice Chair Duran, and members of the Government Affairs Committee. My name is Nathan Anderson, and it is my honor to represent Assembly District 30, which I consider to be the heart of the Truckee Meadows. I'm here today with Nevada State Education Association Executive Director Brian Lee to present AB 172, a bill proposing legislation to require local government employers to provide recognized employee organizations the contact information of employees in the bargaining unit on whose behalf the employee organization represents. That list would be presented twice a year. Basically, the information would be provided by January 1st and July 1st of each year, and the information request includes the name, although that's not currently in the bill, that's assumed. So we should maybe make sure that that's clear. The work location, the work contact information, the personal mailing, and telephone numbers. This information would be requested for each employee of the bargaining unit represented by the employee organization, regardless of membership status of these employees for the public union. As a local union and association leader myself, the organization I represented, we were able to receive this information monthly. This was based upon both the professional and management relationship that we had with each other. There was a mutual respect. There was a feeling that we were all trying to help each other. And then there was also the feeling that sometimes a member who is a member of the bargaining unit might not actually be a member of the association. Yet we still wanted to make sure that they had the same contract information. Because as a contract member or as a union leader, I realized that I was defending the contract, not always the individual. And that's a very important thing to know. But if I did not know if they were a member of my association, I wouldn't know which contract I was supposed to be asked about. And although this does not seem like a big deal, more than a few times as a teacher, I would be asked to represent somebody that was a support professional at my school site, or a bus driver in the school district. Those are different contracts, those are different needs, and those are different elements that are necessary. This bill is being proposed to both streamline the request, as well as clarify that the information should be based on as well as clarifying that this information should not be based upon a relationship and a mutual respect between the leadership of the union or association and the management. With Chair Torres' permission, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Lee, who's able to explain a bit more background of the representation required and why this language is needed. If I may, Chair?
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Torres. This is Brian. I'm Brian Lee, the Executive Director of the Nevada State Education Association. This legislation is necessary because under NRS 288 and EMRB precedent, the union has an obligation to all members of the bargaining unit in contract enforcement, bargaining, and legal obligations to ensure that they have appropriate information about the contract that is pending before them. Regardless of their membership, unions must have a duty to fairly represent everyone in the bargaining unit. As of today, we do not have contact information for everyone in the bargaining unit, nor does the employer have an obligation to provide it. This is not an onerous requirement because under federal law, under the National Labor Relations Act, which applies to private employers, such information is required to be provided. Since at least 1966 in the Excelsior underwear case, which was done before the National Labor Relations Board, the employer has had to provide full bargaining unit information in any time there is a representational election. In 1984, in Harco Industries case, the NLRB also provided that private employers, everyone in the United States who has this obligation, has to provide the same information for its employees. And the federal courts have also continued to have this obligation, impose this obligation upon private employers in the Prudential Insurance case in 1969, which did tie together the duty of fair representation that unions have to all members of the bargaining unit with the obligation to communicate and place a legal obligation which the union can be fined, can be sued, can be held legally liable for failure to communicate with its bargaining unit members. That information is within the realm of the employer, and in order to carry out our legal duties, ones that are imposed upon us by the state of Nevada and the EMRB, we require this information. To date, we have traditionally asked the employer for such information, and many employers have either provided it, others have threatened litigation, and because we have this obligation to our members of the bargaining unit and the members of the union, we would like to streamline this process, limiting it to no more than twice per year. Under National Labor Relations Act, private employers can be asked for this information as often as necessary, but we would like to streamline it only to twice to limit the administrative burden on public employers and to ensure that we receive the information necessary to carry out our legal obligations. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Assemblywoman Anderson.
So as you can see, it's deceptively simple, but possibly, because that's kind of the kiss of death whenever we say something like that. However, the information is found in Section 1 that we're requesting for, and thank you so much for this opportunity to present the information in a quick, succinct way, and we're more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. Oh, one other little tiny thing. I know this is not a budget committee, that this is the policy committee. However, if you take a look at the fiscal notes, many of the county governments that have put in something made a statement that this is already happening, and so it would not cause an extra burden. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear as well. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and we're more than happy to answer any questions, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions? Assemblyman Taylor, and then Assemblyman Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for the information. Thank you for the information on this. I just have a question. One thing is, thank you for the clarification that although you're legally responsible for them and to represent them and so on, it's kind of hard to do that if you can't communicate. So that wasn't clear to me in the legislation. So thank you. But here's my question: other than like contract information, you mentioned Assemblywoman is primarily when you reach out to make sure they know what's in the contract, even though they won't be voting if people who may not be in the bargaining unit. What else do you anticipate using information like this for? That's either for the Assemblywoman or for Director Lee.
Thank you for the question. Nathan Anderson, for the record. Thank you so much, though, for the question, Assemblymember Taylor. My first thought is I'm going back to when I was local president. I would always do an invitation for people to join our association if they wish to. But then also at the beginning of the school year, because as a school teacher, that was the usual time that we would do it, would be August. I would also include possibly invitations to events that we might have, which we have some different member events that we would have at different restaurants and stuff. And then also more information about discounts that I was aware of as an association leader that was available because of being an educator. Many of these people could find it on their own, no question in my mind. However, having that one little letter of, this place offers us a discount. Did you know that AT&T, did you know that a phone company offers a discount? Did you know that this thing does? Because of our profession. And that, again, was just something to celebrate the profession, but then also stand up for what we were doing as an association. So that was one element. I'm sure that Mr. Lee might have some others.
Thank you.
Yes, Brian Lee for the record. So in the processing of grievances, contractual obligations, and a variety of other things that come up before us, we commonly see that these items go across classes of workers. For instance, if there are wage and hour violations among bus drivers, we have an obligation to track down the other bus drivers that may be affected by the same wage and hour violations. Without the contact information for non-members, we are unable to contact them and vindicate their rights. Some employers have attempted to argue that because you can contact them at the workplace, that should be sufficient. However, there are legal obligations and meetings that you do not wish to have over the employer's email or at the employer's workplace. So there are reasons that we would need to be able to send a letter or to place a phone call to an individual who is in the bargaining unit but not one of our members in order to effectively uphold our contract. All contractual violations that are brought by a union are brought in the union's name. However, they are people that are affected by those that we need to have the ability to contact. So those would be what I would be most concerned about, because that is where our legal obligation to our members and members of the bargaining unit come into conflict with the lack of information.
Thank you, Mr. Lee and Assemblywoman Anderson. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Assemblyman Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation of this bill. My question, and just so you know, I guess I would preface this conversation, because right now I want to have a conversation, because as a previous union steward with SEIU 1107, in my prior life as a county worker in Clark County, I think Mr. Lee made a statement that the light bulb went off, and it was non-member information that you're requesting from this bill. And my question to you is the privacy that you would be violating for those non-members, because not everyone respects or want to be listed or bothered by union. So to me, there is a, I'm looking at a violation here that some of those non-members would object to giving their information to the union.
Brian Lee, for the record, thank you for that question, Assemblywoman Thomas. So the issue that we have here is that whenever a member of the bargaining unit wishes to not have communications with us, we opt them out of our communications. So I'm unaware of any union that wishes to communicate with people that do not wish to be communicated with. So first of all. Second of all, there is this legal obligation. We are under a affirmative duty to communicate with these individuals concerning contracts, bargaining, a variety of other issues. That's imposed upon us by 288 and EMRB regulations. We don't have the ability to say, no, we don't wish to do that anymore because these are members of the bargaining unit. No, we're not going to file your grievance because you're not a member of the union and you're just a member of the bargaining unit. That is not an obligation that we are allowed to ignore. So therefore, once that duty has been placed upon us by the state via 288 and EMRB, we need this information to do so. We do so respectfully. When members of the bargaining unit wish to no longer receive communications, all of our communications allow people to opt out, and we move on.
Let me go ahead and go to the next question. I apologize, because we do have another bill hearing, and I know we have a lot of people here to testify and support and testify on that bill. The next question, I know I had another hand over here. Is that all?
While figuring that out, if I could also add to it, as a local leader for my organization, I did have to be in a position one time of defending the contract for an individual that was not part of our organization. Based upon the letter that I had sent earlier in the year is where that individual found out that information. I respect where you're coming from, however, Assemblymember Thomas, and would like to be able to continue the discussions with you if possible offline. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Duran.
Thank you, Chair. I guess the statement is in the collective bargaining agreement world, which we have, which I am a grievance specialist and I do represent workers for the culinary union. We do negotiate that information, which basically has new hires, terminations, data hire, classification, address, phone number. So, and it isn't used to just harass these people. Like he said, it is legally mandated that we have to represent everybody fairly and give them the information that the union is acquiring or negotiations to keep them updated as well. Just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. And then a quick question that I have. So is it pretty standard then that within even other workplaces, like in the private sector, that unions would have access to this information so that they could communicate with the individuals in which they represent?
Thank you for that question, Chair. This is Brian Lee for the record. Yes, as I stated before, under the National Labor Relations Act, which is on all private employers that have unions, this information must be provided. It is presumptively relevant under the Harco's Industries case. This is a common practice. It is enforced by the National Labor Relations Board if an employer refuses. It is so well enforced that I have never actually seen an employer in my private union employment, ever reject the information for all members of the bargaining unit, because under the NLRA and under the NLRB precedent, that is binding. Those precedents are not binding on the state or local government employers, because the NLRA does not reach that far. But in your question, for private employers everywhere in the United States, this is information that must be provided, and I have never seen a situation in which it has not been.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Members, any additional questions? All right, then we will go ahead and go on to those wishing to testify in support of AB 172. When you're ready.
Kent Irvin, K-E-N-T-E-R-V-I-N, Nevada Faculty Alliance. We support AB 172 and the concept of authorizing a public employer to provide contact information for bargaining unit members. This bill does not directly affect us because it applies to local governments, but there is a similar provision in Assembly Bill 224, which applies collective bargaining for professional employees of the Nevada system of higher education. Facilitating the employee association's duty of fair representation for members of the bargaining unit has already been described. In addition, because our national affiliate requires, because they represent members nationally at both public and private colleges and universities, they mandate that we follow the National Labor Relations Board rules for sending using home addresses for certain communications, such as election notices, and that could also apply to some local government associations. As a practical matter, the employer is most likely to have the most up-to-date contact information, especially for employees in the bargaining unit who choose not to be members of the association. Unavailable or old addresses could deprive those employees of receiving important updates from the association regarding collective bargaining agreements that apply to them. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. For the record, Tom Worley, representing Laborers Local 872 and Laborers Local 169. We're in support. And as a former vice president of Nevada State AFL-CIO, we're in strong support. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Annette Magnus, and I'm the Executive Director of Battleborn Progress. We are in strong support of Assembly Bill 172, and we thank Assemblywoman Anderson and the rest of the sponsors for bringing this forward. Labor unions should have access to workers in the bargaining units they represent, because when this information is readily available, the unions can focus their efforts on outreach and representation of those workers as soon as possible so they can represent the contracts the best way possible. We urge your support of Assembly Bill 172. Thank you.
Greg Esposito, representing the Nevada State Pipe Trades. We agree with what has been presented here and can't imagine not being able to communicate with the workers that we are legally bound to represent. So the bill makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in Carson City wishing to testify in support of AB 172? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and invite any audience in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support of AB 172. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of AB 172?
Chair, the line is open and working, but we have no callers for support at this time.
Thank you. I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in opposition to AB 172.
Thank you, Chair Torres, Vice Chair Duran, and members of the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. For the record, my name is Jennifer Berthume, Government Affairs Manager at the Nevada Association of Counties. On behalf of NACO members, and specifically Clark County, we oppose AB 172 as drafted. We do thank the bill sponsor for her willingness to work with us on our concern of local governments providing employee home addresses and phone numbers. This disclosure of private information conflicts with privacy rights that Clark County has codified for their employees in County Ordinance 2.40.150. While basic employee information such as job title, salary information, employment history, department assignment, and duties may and have been provided, personal information, including the employee's address and telephone number, cannot be released except by written approval from the employee pursuant to subpoena or court order compelling release. We believe that this information can be discussed as part of the collective bargaining and contract negotiations. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Committee. For the record, my name is Steve Walker. I represent Lyon County this morning. The opposition to the bill is strictly that we don't think we want to give them home addresses and telephone numbers. It is a part of in the HRIS system, the Human Resource Management System in Lyon County, that is a private information and it's not accessible. And basically, if that was removed from the bill, there would be Lyon County would be neutral. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Torres, members of the committee. For the record, David Cherry, Government Affairs Manager for the City of Henderson. The City of Henderson values its employees, and we value the employee privacy as well. So we would like to echo the comments that have been shared with you by the previous two commenters this morning. Also wanted to thank, most importantly, the bill sponsor for having a willingness to continue to work with us on this concern.
Good morning, Chair Torres, members of the Committee on Government Affairs, Leonardo Benavides, City of North Las Vegas. I want to echo the sentiments from my fellow cities and fellow counties as well. We have the privacy concerns, but we appreciate Assemblywoman Anderson for working with us to try to resolve these issues. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Dylan Keith, Assistant Director of Government Affairs at the Vegas Chamber. We have strong concerns with AB 172, specifically the violation of privacy rights for our public employees, releasing very personal information, including their home address, phone number, and personal emails. We also specifically have concerns with this bill that there is no opt-out for these employees and that they will have to send this information out. And we do also believe that this will become a barrier when we are recruiting new public employees. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the sponsor for working with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no additional opposition here in Carson City, is there any additional opposition in Las Vegas to AB 172? BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to AB 172?
Chair, the line is open and working, but we have no callers for opposition at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to testify in neutral to AB 172 here in Carson City? In Las Vegas, I'll open it to anyone wishing to testify in neutral to AB 172 in Las Vegas.
Good morning. My name is Bruce Snyder. I'm the Commissioner of the Government Employee Management Relations Board. We're neutral on this bill. I just want to offer two comments. There was talk about it being EMRB precedent about having to represent non-members in contractual issues. That is true. It is also true that the Nevada Supreme Court has ruled that non-members must be represented by a union. In fact, the Nevada Supreme Court ruled on three things. One, you must represent non-members. You can't discriminate against non-members just because they're non-members. Two, you cannot charge non-members dues. But three, you can charge them a fee for any particular services rendered for that particular representation. My second comment is on a personal experience being a former union lawyer representing employees who worked for a large government in Nevada, that we had these kinds of issues within our union contract as to what information needed to be provided and how often. And in fact, that information was provided electronically to make it an easy transfer to the system that the union had. That's my only comment. I'm here to answer any questions, should you have any.
Members, any questions? I don't think there are any at this time, but thank you so much. We appreciate it. Is there anyone else in Las Vegas wishing to testify in neutral? Seeing none, BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in neutral to AB 172?
The lines are open and working, but we have no callers for neutral at this time.
Thank you. Then I'd like to invite Assemblyman Anderson to go ahead and give any additional closing remarks.
I just again want to thank you so much for this opportunity to present the bill, the ideas and the information or issues that this is dealing with. I look forward to further conversations with our city and county individuals who have brought forward these items so we can maybe find some middle ground that they also were having concerns with. So thank you so much, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions offline as well. Thank you again, Chair.
Thank you. At this time, we will close the hearing on AB 172, and we'll open the hearing on AB 173, which revises provisions governing public works. Assemblyman Gray, when you're ready. When you're ready, you may begin.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Assemblyman Ken Gray for the record. And good morning, the hardest working Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. I'm pleased to sponsor and present Assembly Bill 173 today to the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. I brought forth this legislation because Nevada's current bidding process for public works is deficient. As my co-presenters will detail, this bill clarifies when certain subcontractors are required to be listed on general contractors' bids. The current requirements for properly identifying these subcontractors are ambiguous at best and may lead to bid submissions being deemed as non-responsive because certain required information was not provided along with the bid. Excuse me. This bill seeks to remedy this problem and others by simplifying the governing law. I'll now turn it over to Alexis Motorex to continue the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Alexis Motorex with the Nevada Chapter Associated General Contractors, representing the commercial construction industry in Northern Nevada. I'm pleased to be here today to help present AB 173 and want to thank Assemblyman Gray for sponsoring the bill. The purpose of the bill is really quite simple. We want to standardize the way every public owner requires the listing of subcontractors for public works. Current law is confusing, contains seldom used provisions, and is inconsistent when smaller subcontractors are required to be listed. We want to make it easier for both contractors and public bodies to comply with the law, maintain transparency, and minimize the number of bid protests or the bids being deemed non-responsive because they didn't get the numbers right in the formula currently required. As amended, AB 173 maintains that contractors must submit any first-tier subcontractor on a public work bid being paid an amount exceeding 5% of the total bid price at the time of bid opening, but deletes the 3% listing requirement as it is seldomly used, and when it is used, it's most often used incorrectly. It is confusing for both contractors and public body and leads to those bids being disputed or deemed non-responsive. Additionally, as amended, AB 173 eliminates the language requiring the listing of subcontractors who will complete work greater than $250,000, but if not greater than $250,000, then $50,000 or 1% of the total bid price, whichever is greater. Instead, this language will simply require contractors who submitted the 3 lowest bids at bid opening to submit a list of first-tier subcontractors providing any work totaling $50,000 or 1% of the prime contractor's total bid, whichever is greater, within 2 hours of completion of opening bids. There were some concerns with the original bill and our first stab at an amendment, but we're happy to say that we've worked with stakeholders and think we have reached a compromise with which everyone is happy. I do have some contractors here as subject matter experts to speak to their experience with the current system and why it is due for a change. We've got Mark Markwell, CFO for Sierra Nevada Construction, and Dave Backman with KG Walters.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Mark Markwell with Sierra Nevada Construction. We're a heavy civil contractor based out of Sparks, Nevada. We have worked with Alexis and appreciate everybody's help on this to try to simplify, ultimately, the bidding process. It gets very cumbersome and complex, and there are, sometimes we have 8, 9, 10 bids a week, so we're trying to simplify the process. A couple things this bill does that really helps that is it removes the 3% listing option, which obviously leads to some confusion, and as my colleague will say, even some bid protests, which ultimately cause the taxpayers to pay more for a project. The current requirements are out of date. $50,000 isn't what it used to be, and so we're trying to make it a little bit more current with the inflation and everything else. The current requirements haven't changed since 2013. So again, the inflation and the market conditions have changed. And then basically, by standardizing this, we're requiring all owners, doesn't matter what kind of project they're putting out there, to be consistent in the same information at bid opening is required. Thank you.
For the record, my name is Dave Backman with KG Walters Construction, principal of the company. Just thank you for at least hearing our side of it, and especially on the heels of that presentation from the Labor Commissioner. It's exhausting when you're a public works contractor, Mark, and I actually was subject to the 3% listing years ago. I actually had forgotten about it until someone called on me to testify. It was pretty painful. I blocked it out. But the point here that we're trying to make is this: if you could just simplify things and make it a level playing field for wherever we're bidding work, because as Mark says, we're always bidding work, and it's all over the state. And sometimes there's these one-offs with the 3%, and you're caught off guard, and it does create room for issues with those listings. Actually lost out on a project over in Fernley because of this. So it would be nice I just see this as a little housekeeping, and just to put everybody on the same level would be very nice. I think it's pretty simple. As Mark alluded to, contract prices have gone up tremendously, especially since 2013 when this was last addressed. So currently just finished a $55 million wastewater plant up in Reno, working on just a little under $100 million one in Washoe County. You can imagine the logistics required to get down into the weeds on bid day when you're doing a lot. Definitely want to protect the interests of contractors, but I think this is a small ask, just a cleanup of the current requirements is really all we're asking here. We'll answer any questions if anybody wants to know a little more. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Thank you. Could you talk a little bit about the bidding process and how this change is going to make what the bidding process looks like? If we could just start there, because I don't know that was explained in the presentation. Thank you.
Sure. Yes. At bid time, what we have to do is we have to submit all our subs.
Can you say your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mark Markwell again for the record. So at bid time, what we have to do is we have to submit a list of all the subcontractors that are 1%. And what that does is it may reduce the amount of work that goes into it, so you're not scrambling. Because what happens at bid time is a lot of times you don't get people's number until 20 minutes before the job bids. So you're scrambling to see who's the lowest, make sure that all the scope is covered, that they're not missing something out, and then you put all that list together and say, okay, I got to submit this. And then there's also there's a 2-hour listing as well, but this will help simplify that. So at bid time, there's not as much logistics. As a civil contractor, we maybe have 5 or 6 subcontractors on the building side, which we don't have anybody really representing that, although David does some work that is similar. You might have 20, 30 subcontractors. So it really helps them out so they can really identify what are the important subcontractors to list. Does that help?
If I may, I can sort of try and answer that by demonstrating how confusing it is, the way that current law reads. That a bid must include the names of each first-tier subcontractor to be
And I apologize, Ms.
Oh, I'm
Modex.
sorry, Alexis Moderex with the AGC. If a public body provides, first-tier subcontractor needs to be listed if a public body provides a list of the labor or a portion of the public work which is estimated by the public body to exceed 3% of the estimated cost of the public work. Or if the public body does not provide that 3% list, the prime contractor must provide the name of each first-tier sub who will provide labor or a portion of the work in an amount exceeding 5% of the total bid. Then within 2 hours after the completion of the opening of bids, contractors who submitted the 3 lowest bids must submit a list containing names of each of their first-tier subs being paid an amount exceeding $250,000, or if not an amount exceeding $250,000, then the names of each sub who will provide the work of either being paid either 1% of the total price or $50,000, whichever is greater. So that's what current law says, which I think just trying to read it and demonstrate it explains why it can be confusing. The 3% list, the public body needs to provide that. It's often used incorrectly, required incorrectly, resulting in bid protests and lost jobs. So we're just trying to clarify that and keep it at the 50,000. And it was a compromise with some stakeholders that we kept it at 50,000. We wanted originally to do it at 100,000. There was some concern, but that $50,000 was put into statute in 1993 and hasn't been adjusted since. If we go in today's dollars, I believe that's about 103,000 that would create that level playing field. But we'll keep it at 50 or 1% of the total bid price, whichever is greater. So that should address some of the issues with the building contractors.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions?
Madam Chair, if I can add a comment, please. As Assemblyman Ken Gray, Assembly District 39, so as Ms. Moderex just demonstrated, it's a very confusing process. You know, some of the smaller companies and stuff, they get lost in the minutia. This really streamlines the process while maintaining the spirit and the intent. And we just want to clean it up so more people can, understand it and actually abide by it. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't believe there's any additional questions. Thank you. We'll now invite anybody wishing to testify in support of AB 173.
Excuse me. Good morning, Madam Chair, committee members. Bill Wellman here today representing Las Vegas Paving. And we applaud the AGC and Assemblyman Gray for bringing this forward. This has been a challenge for many, many years, with it being a bit ambiguous. And unfortunately, we need some consistency. And that's what this new language will, in fact, do. It frankly helps protect the subcontractors that we're actually listing. They'll get to understand it better as we move forward in the bidding processes on all of our public works projects. So we highly support this and hope that you will as well.
Good morning, Brian Reeder on behalf of the Nevada Contractors Association. Just want to thank the sponsor and urge your support. Thanks.
Is there anyone else wishing to testify in support of AB 173 here in Carson City? Seeing none, I'll invite anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support of AB 173. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of AB 173?
To testify in support of AB 173, please press *9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers wishing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you. I will now invite anyone wishing to testify in opposition to AB 173. I do not see any here in Carson City. In Las Vegas, I will invite anyone wishing to testify in opposition to AB 173.
Good morning. Matt Kleiner with the City of Las Vegas. For the record, we'd like to thank the chair and committee members for hearing the city's concerns with this bill. We are now in receipt of the proposed amendment to this bill, which addresses all of our concerns. So if the conceptual amendment is adopted, the city can go neutral on this bill. So thank you very much. I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
Yes, I apologize. Just for clarification, is there an organization that you represent?
Matt Kleiner, for the record. I'm with the City of Las Vegas.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate that. I apologize. There was confusion because we have the lobbyist for the City of Las Vegas in the room as well. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
We're just trying to clarify, is that opposition or neutral?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Kelly Crompton, representing the City of Las Vegas. Our Public Works employee was in opposition, but we received the amendment late in the committee hearing room, so he is neutral with the new language. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And committee secretaries, if we could put that language under, if we could put that testimony under neutral, we would appreciate that. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in opposition to AB 173? BPS, is there anyone on the phone?
To testify in opposition of AB 173, please press *9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers wishing to testify for opposition at this time.
Is there anyone wishing to testify neutral to AB 173 here in Carson City?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Vince Saavedra, for the record. Saavedra, S-A-A-V-E-D-R-A. I'm the Executive Secretary Treasurer to the Southern Nevada Building and Construction Trade Unions, and we're in neutral support of this bill. Thank you.
And for clarification, I think you're just neutral on the bill, correct? Thank you. I appreciate that.
Good morning, everyone. For the record, Tom Morley, representing Labor's Local 169 and Local 872.
I'm sorry, Mr. Morley. Can you make sure your mic is on or put the mic a little bit closer? Thank you.
Is that better? And we're in the neutral position.
I don't believe it's on.
Close enough.
Now I broke it.
There you go.
See, I need an IBEW guy to fix this thing. For the record, Tom Morley, representing Labor's Local 872 and Labor's Local 169 in Reno, and we are in the neutral. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify neutral in Las Vegas?
Good morning, Matt Kleiner again with the City of Las Vegas. For the record, we just wanted to clarify that with the amendment, the city is neutral on this bill.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you for coming to our committee today. Is there anybody else at neutral in Las Vegas? BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify neutral to AB 173?
To testify in neutral for AB 173, please press *9 to take your place in the queue. Caller, please press *6 to unmute on your end.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the community. This is Rob Benner, B-E-N-N-E-R, with the Northern Nevada Building Trades. We were opposed to this bill, but with the new amendment, we are now neutral. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benner. Is it BPS? Is there anyone else on the line wishing to testify neutral to AB 173?
Chair, we have no additional callers for neutral at this time.
Thank you. Assemblyman Gray, any closing remarks?
Madam Chair, thank you, and thank you to the hardest working committee on government affairs in this building. So thank you guys. I do urge your support of this. It will really be a cleanup and assist our contractors and folks out there that are taking on our public projects. And as a final question, where does the city of Las Vegas stand on this?
I see Ms. Crompton telling me that it's a definite neutral. Thank you, Assemblyman Gray. At this time, we will close the hearing on AB 173. And we will go ahead and go to the last item on the agenda today, which is public comment. Each person has 2 minutes to provide testimony. Public comment may be submitted in writing to the committee up to 24 hours after the hearing. Is there anyone in person here in Carson City in Las Vegas wishing to give public comment? Seeing none. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to give public comment?
Chair, the line is open and working, but we have no callers at this time.
And members, is there any additional remarks? Assemblyman MacArthur, you look particularly intrigued today. Well, no, he just wants it for the record that Assemblyman MacArthur is fine. Tomorrow, as a reminder to the committee, we will be meeting in room 3143. We'll have a presentation from the Office of the Secretary of State, Francisco Aguilar, and we'll be hearing AB 59 and AB 96. At this time, the meeting is adjourned.